Money plays a key role in present society, and most of the people are now accepting anything that generates money easily without inquiring about their legality. So, most people end up in money scams. The Ponzi scheme is one such fraud where people always get trapped. When we are exploring history, we can find some famous figures who acted as the central hub of such Ponzi schemes, carrying out multi-billion-dollar scams. Through this video, we are going to discuss the person behind the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, who was once an American hedge fund investment manager and former chairman of the NASDAQ as well. He is Bernie Madoff.
Classic Ponzi scheme. Madoff.
Bernie Madoff.
Bernie Madoff.
Bernie Madoff.
Bernie Madoff.
It is the biggest investment fraud in history. There you are, folks.
We lost 95% of what we had.
The victims numbered in the tens of thousands.
You know, everything you worked so hard for has been taken away from you.
Before we proceed, hit the subscribe button and smash the bell icon for more exciting stories. Bernie Lawrence Madoff was born in 1938 in New York and grew up in the Jewish neighborhood of Laurelton in Queens. He entered the University of Alabama to obtain his first degree. But after spending his freshman year there, he moved to Hofstra University, Hempstead, to complete the degree in political science stream. Madoff studied law to a certain extent at the Brooklyn Law School before the establishment of Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities with his wife. He was someone who preferred penny stocks, and it became the main cause of his early success. Madoff's early success as an investor in the share market paved the way to become the director of NASDAQ for a 3-year term. This helped him to build strong relationships with wealthy businessmen in the New York region, and he was able to win the heart of every businessman with that association. So, he came up with attractive investment schemes that promised higher incomes. But in reality, there was no real methods of income, and the only thing that happened was Bernie used the money he got from the new investors to complete the payouts of existing investors. Madoff's pyramid was started in that way and expanded very rapidly. Bernie Madoff used that money not only for completing payouts, but also to treat his family members and friends as well. Some individuals later identified that what he promised for their investments was totally a fake, as there was no transparency in his whole process. Normally, such investment firms go for an accepted auditor to maintain transparency as well as improve the client's trust regarding the company. But Bernie Madoff used a very small audit firm with a limited number of operating crew, and it led to create a big question among the people who invested money within his company. In 2001, Barron's Financial Magazine was the first official report to raise the question about the operational process behind Bernie Madoff's company. Financial analyst Harry Markopoulos repeatedly highlighted the problems related to Bernie Madoff's company and presented them with enough evidence to the Securities and Exchange Commission after a detailed investigation. But SEC didn't want to take any action against the company, and he has direct or indirect support from large accounting firms, as none of the companies reported any irregularities in the operational process of his company. All these factors combined very well to become a shield for this fraud businessman. With or without a reason, JP Morgan Chase Bank also gave less attention to the possible signs of money laundering activities related to Madoff's multi-million-dollar Chase Bank account. This bank account was used by the Ponzi schemer to transfer the money from its US base to the European base located in London. Actually, they wanted to give the appearance that they were investing in British and other European securities to generate income. But it was just a scam, and no one expected that such trades were not really happening, as Madoff's employees were in the process of generating fake operational reports related to the company. The longevity of the scheme was achieved through the feeder funds. Actually, they are the managed funds that bundled money from other investors, and those funds were invested in Madoff securities for management. So, the actual individual investors didn't know where their money was invested. During the first collapse of the Bernie Madoff securities in parallel to the 2008 economic crisis, all these feeder funds also collapsed. Many international banks like Banco Santander of Spain, BNP Paribas in France, and Britain's HSBC reported huge losses due to the loans that they had made to the investors who invested largely in such feeder funds. Bernie collected the funds and put it into a single bank account, which he used to pay existing clients who wanted to cash out. This was possible as the majority of investors didn't take their investment money back except the profit that it had generated. It failed when the 2008 economic crisis hit the global economy, and many investors wanted to take their money back at one time. And on the other hand, the flow of the money was hugely reduced as many investors had no funds to invest during that economic crisis. On the 10th of December 2008, he confessed what he was doing to his sons, and the following day, they turned him over to the authorities. His sons were a key part of his scheme, but Bernie remained adamant that they were innocent and knew nothing about the scheme. The most interesting fact is the longevity of the Ponzi scheme showed around 2 decades without any failure. Bernie testified in the court that he began the process in 1990 and continued until its failure in 2008. It is still unclear why he carried out a Ponzi scheme even though he had enough money for a good life since the beginning. During an interview with journalist Steve Fishman, Bernie said, "I had more than enough money to support any of my lifestyle and my family's lifestyle. I didn't need to do this for that. I don't know why." As we mentioned earlier, he was a very successful businessman at the beginning, and if he continued that legitimate nature very slowly, he could have earned the Wall Street elite's respect solely as a market maker and electronic trading pioneer. Even though he testified that he began the Ponzi scheme for the first time in 1990, his manager since 1975, Frank DePascali, claimed that he was doing this thing as a practice for as long as he remembered. Madoff repeatedly told Fishman during the interview that he was not the only big brain behind this fraud. "I just allowed myself to be talked into something, and that's my fault," he said, but without pointing out clearly who talked him into it. "I thought I could remove myself after a period of time. I thought it would be a very short period of time, but I just couldn't." There are 4 big names behind the investments related to Bernie L. Madoff Investment Securities, LLC. They are Carl Shapiro, Jeffrey Picower, Stanley Chase, and Norm Levy, who had decades-long relationships with Madoff that dated back to the 1960s and 1970s. Their investments with Bernie Madoff are valued at more than hundreds of millions of dollars each. Everybody was greedy. Everybody wanted to go on, and I just went along with it, Madoff told Fishman. "How can you be making 15 or 18% when everyone is making less money?" Madoff said. Bernie accepted that he was wrong, but he questioned the role of investors, as no one wants to stop investing in it, even if there was enough evidence to identify it as a fraud. As we said earlier, Bernie confessed to his sons, and they turned him in to the authorities. "The afternoon I told them all, they immediately left. They went to a lawyer. The lawyer said, 'You gotta turn your father in.' They went, did that, and then I never saw them again." Bernie Madoff was arrested on December 11th, 2008. Bernie testified that he acted alone in the whole process, but several close colleagues of his were sent to prison for their roles in the Ponzi scheme. Bernie's eldest son, Mark Madoff, committed suicide 2 years later, and several other investors of Bernie's Ponzi scheme also committed suicide with the losses they experienced. Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison by the court. He was also forced to forfeit $170 billion for the losses that he caused. Bernie's 3 homes and 4 boats were auctioned to generate money to pay off compensations for the losses experienced by the investors. Madoff's lawyers made an appeal to release him early with his bad health condition in 2020. But it did not happen, and he died due to a terminal kidney disease on April 14, 2021. That's the story of the world's biggest Ponzi schemer, who maintained longevity for several decades. What do you think about the fraud carried out by Bernie Madoff? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel to get more exciting stories related to Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, and frauds. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.